Today is the 19th of January 2026. Yesterday I spoke mainly about the four functions of effort. They are first to prevent the unwholesome states that haven't arisen yet. Second, to eliminate, to dispel unwholesome states that have already arisen. Third, to give rise the wholesome states that have not yet arisen. And fourth, to cultivate, sustain, develop and fulfill the wholesome states that have already arisen. These are the four tasks or functions of Viriya effort. Whenever yogis, meditators put effort, whenever they make commitment to observe the presently arising object, whether it is in the sitting or walking or in day-to-day activities, that applied effort does its function, four function, all at once at the same time. Yesterday I explained this. Among those four functions, the first function is about prevention. It is about prevention, and second function is about cure. We have been talking about prevention and cure. Prevention of the mental illnesses or defilements, and cure, immediate or instant cure of mental illnesses and or defilements. So the effort that meditators apply will do that task, the prevention and elimination, the immediate cure. Hence, the meditator's mind becomes free from the mental illnesses. Moreover, as meditators put effort and apply the accurate aiming to place their mind on the meditative object repeatedly again and again, so mind become well applied on the meditative object. I have already mentioned accurate aiming place the mind on the meditative object. It helps to hit the target, that is meditative object. It is also known as initial application. Vitakka is also known as initial application. Previously I mentioned as accurate aiming. The another name of the vitakka is initial application. It applies the mind on the meditative object. It helps you to put your mind on the meditative object. And as you apply this vitakka again and again, mind becomes sustained on the meditative object. And at the same time, vichara, which is sustained application develops. Vitakka, vichara are the jhanic factors. They are crucial. They are essential when we practice meditation, because first they help you to penetrate into the meditation object. Secondly, they dispel or burn up the opposite unwholesome mental factors, which are hindrances. They help to burn up the hindrances which may hinder you in the meditation practice. So these jhanic factors are required when we observe the meditation object. Right now, the vitakka, initial application, accurate aiming, and vichara, the sustained application. In this way, as accurate aiming or initial application is repeated again and again, together with the presence of ardent effort, the mind begins to establish itself closely, firmly, and steadily. It not only becomes well established but also starts to penetrate or sink or plunge deeply into the meditation object. When mind starts to penetrate or plunge deeply into the meditation object, that is the development of the mindfulness sati. When sati develops, the mind does not wobble. Mind does not wobble or skim over the meditation object, because this non-wobbling or non-superficial quality is the characteristic of sati mindfulness. This means when you observe the meditation object, the mind should not float away from the object nor remain on the surface. The traditional simile is of a cork or a dried hollow pumpkin placed in water. It bobs up and down, always like skimming the surface, never sinking. But the mindfulness is not like that. The true mindfulness does not skim over the object. It sinks into it, plunges deeply, and remains steadfast and unmoving. Mindfulness plunges into the meditative object. It stays fully connected with the object moment by moment, and not drifting, not wavering, remaining steadily, firmly on the meditative object. To avoid drifting or wavering, and instead to plunge into the meditative object, again effort is required. Without sufficient effort, the mind will simply touch the surface. It will not truly penetrate or merge with the object. Moreover, a swift plunging is necessary, because physical and the mental objects arise and pass away quickly, rapidly, If you delay, the object will already be gone and mindfulness will miss it. The simile is this: a stone gently placed on the surface of water sinks slowly, but a stone that is forcefully thrown plunges swiftly to the bottom of the water. In the same way, to plunge into the object with precision and depth, strong and timely effort is necessary. That is also why I have been talking about the effort, emphasizing about the effort. Without sufficient effort, your mind will not plunge, sink into the meditative object. Secondly, your mind will delay to get the object on time, since the object, physical and mental object, they arise and pass away so swiftly. This is how genuine mindfulness is generated. And the generation of this authentic, steadfast mindfulness is the first and the foremost priority in this meditation practice. It is the very foundation upon which concentration and all insight depend. Without mindfulness, there is no chance to develop concentration, and without concentration, there is no chance of development of wisdom. Now, this authentic mindfulness which penetrates, which plunges into the meditative object, reminds meditators to check whether their mind is truly plunging into the object or not. When observing rising and falling of abdomen, is your mind sinking into the object or merely touching it? So yogis, meditators need to check themselves whether their mind is really penetrating into the object, to make sure that mindfulness is generated. Not only when you observe the primary object, when you observe secondary objects such as thinking, thoughts, or sensations, is your mindfulness penetrating the experience or just noting it vaguely or superficially? The same applies during walking meditation and throughout daily activities. Whatever the object may be, ensure that mindfulness is firm, steady and deeply connected, not loose, not wavering or skimming the surface of the object. Generally, meditators try their best to penetrate into the primary object. But when they observe the secondary object like thinking, such as thinking, thoughts, planning, when they observe sensations, especially unpleasant sensation, which they don't like, they don't observe penetrately, or they don't try to sink into those secondary objects. They observe superficially. Their mind often skims over those secondary objects. Similarly, when they do walking meditation, they don't make such an effort to absorb deeply the movement of the feet. They fail to do, hence the mind often skims over the movement of the feet. And needless to say about the day-to-day activities, we meditators do not think, we don't think it is that important to practice in day-to-day activities, and we take it easily. Most of the time we are casual. So when we observe casually, when we don't pay much attention in day-to-day activities, then how is it possible to penetrate into those activities? So that means we fail to develop mindfulness in day-to-day activities. Again, when the mind sinks or plunges into the meditative object, it does not go off easily. It doesn't wander easily. The simile is this: dry leaves or pieces of paper can be blown away by even a small gust of wind, but well-grounded pillars or the large rocks cannot be moved easily. In the same way, a mind that merely touches the surface of the object like a dry leaf can be easily swept away by thoughts, sounds, and emotions. But a mind that is well and deeply penetrate into the object, like a rock firmly rooted in the earth, will remain steady, unshaken, and resilient even when distractions arise. So this is the power of well-established mindfulness. It holds the mind in place even in the midst of inner and outer turbulence. And when your when your mindfulness is firm, steady, deeply connected with the meditation object, you do not lose it, you do not miss it, and you don't forget it. This is because the function of the mindfulness is non-forgetfulness. Its role is to keep the object in the mind continuously without slipping away. Mindfulness holds the object clearly, consistently, and without wavering. It keeps the mind from drifting into the forgetfulness. So when mindfulness is well established, the mind remains present and aware. It does not forget what it is observing. It does not become scattered. It maintains a continuous view of the meditation object moment by moment. Like a footballer keeps their eyes on the ball throughout the game, a badminton player keeps their focus on the shuttlecock A boxer closely watches the movement of their opponent. Their attention do not drift away. It stays with what matters most in that moment. In the same way, mindfulness keeps the meditation object in view. It doesn't let the mind miss the object or forget it. It tracks it steadily. This is why when mindfulness is absent, meditators tend to miss the object or forget to observe in it altogether. At times they do not even know what the object was, a state of complete delusion. But as mindfulness grows stronger, meditators rarely miss the object. In addition, the mind always faces toward the meditation object. This means the mind becomes naturally inclined, oriented and turned toward whatever object is being observed, whether it is rising and falling of the abdomen, or bodily sensation, or thought, or a feeling. As you know, sunflower always turns toward the sun. So just as a sunflower turns toward the sun, or a compass needle points north, similarly a mind imbued with the strong mindfulness continuously turns towards the object without needing to be forced or reminded. The mind no longer wanders aimlessly. It doesn't need to be dragged back over and over. Instead, it begins to rest naturally on the object, returning to it again and again with interest and with steadiness. You might have seen boomerang. Just as a boomerang which returns to the hand that threw it, the mind trained in mindfulness keeps returning to the object. It keeps returning to the object even if it briefly moves away, it comes back automatically, almost by habit, because its orientation has been firmly set. So in this way, when mind starts to return automatically, spontaneously to the meditative object, automatically, without any effort, effortlessly when it tends to return. So that is the sign of maturity in the practice. When the mind not only stays with the object but wants to stay. Mind wants to stay with it as if it has found a home. To get this situation, to get this label, we have to train our mind consistently and repeatedly. So how do we train the mind to become like this? By behaving, by doing like a spider. You might have seen spider. A spider rests quietly at the center of its web. You might have seen the web of the spider. So a spider rests quietly at the center of its web. Whenever an insect or prey gets caught anywhere on the web, the spider swiftly rushes out, deals with it, and then returns to the center. In the same way, we train the mind to stay centered on the primary object, the rising and the falling of the abdomen. Whenever a thought, sound, or sensation becomes obvious somewhere in the wave of experience, the mind should absorb it quickly and clearly, then swiftly return to the center, back to the primary meditation object after noting the distraction. In this way, we train our mind not to become lost or distracted, but to remain steadily focused on the meditative object. Meditators should behave the primary object, the rising and falling of the abdomen, as their home. Meditators stay at home like a male and female. Meditators, they stay at home. Monks, nuns, they stay at monastery. So that is their home. So you stay at home when nowhere else to go. You stay at home. Sometimes you go to work or to the office. When work is done, you return to home. You return home. At times, you may go to visit friends, relatives, and at times you may go traveling. Then after, you return home. At times you may go for shopping, you may go market, but eventually you return home. So rising and falling is as your home. If there is no any noticeable object to be observed, you should stay observing the primary object of the rising and falling. When thinking thoughts appear, then note them, observe and note them, then swiftly return to abdomen. When sensations become obvious, any part of the body, observe, note, then return to your home. When seeing, hearing, at times smelling, these experiences become obvious, note them and bring your attention back to the abdomen. So rising and falling, the primary object is like home. In this way, you should train your mind with application of the accurate aiming and ardent effort. As you apply repeatedly again and again, then mind starts to penetrate into the meditative object itself, and mindfulness tends to arise. The best thing of mindfulness is that it protects the mind from being attacked by defilements, by mental illnesses. When mindfulness is present, mental defilements or illnesses have no opportunity to enter the stream of consciousness, to stream of mind. Mindfulness is likened to a doorkeeper or a guard because it guards the six sense doors. Just as a doorkeeper does not admit harmful or destructive people but allows only those who are good and beneficial, mindfulness permits only wholesome qualities to enter the mind, the keeping the unwholesomeness always out. So mindfulness protects, guards your mind from the unwholesomenesses or from defilements. But just as a doorkeeper does not merely stand at the door and observe who comes and goes, but a skilled doorkeeper also blocks and defends. In the same way, mindfulness does not just passively notice what is arising through the six sense doors. It also blocks unwholesome influences such as greed, hatred, restlessness, or delusion from entering and taking root in the mind, and it defends the inner peace. It defends the inner peace, clarity and wisdom that we are cultivating through our practice. Just as a well-trained guard can recognize threats before they cause harm, mindfulness is proactive. Mindfulness is proactive, catching the early signs of defilements and preventing them from influencing our thoughts, speech, or actions. Without mindfulness, the six sense doors are wide open, or our mind itself is wide open. The mind is left vulnerable, easily overwhelmed by sense object and in reactive pattern. But with mindfulness, guarding, blocking and defending, we keep our mind safe and steady. So in this way, when mindfulness is present, our mind is well protected from defilements. Our mind is well protected from mental illnesses. Defilements have no chance at all to enter in our mind stream. And at the same time, it blocks, it defends, and the sense of safety develops, the mental freedom, being free from defilements, and then calmness, peacefulness. All these benefits we enjoy all at once. Yet to talk more in detail tomorrow about how mindfulness brings mental calmness, peacefulness. We will discuss tomorrow about it. For today, through application of accurate aiming and sustained effort, may you be able to develop mindfulness. Having mindfulness, may you be able to protect your mind. May you be able to keep your mind guarded, protected, and may you be able to free from defilements or mental illnesses.